If you learnt English as an adult, you probably still sound foreign. And everybody says your accent is permanent, right? Well, I've been thinking a lot about this, especially for people learning English. Is it actually possible to change your accent as an adult to sound more native or even fully native? And maybe the bigger question is, should you even try? Is native something you should be aiming for? I've said it 100 times on this channel. Pronunciation matters, your accent doesn't. But just recently, I've started to question that. What if you could change? What you wanna bet? Would be definitely something interesting. You're having a laugh. Pronunciation is about sounds and stress and how words connect. It's what makes you understandable. Sure, pronunciation changes by region, but there's still a correct way to do it. It can be clear or unclear, right or wrong. Accent, on the other hand, is more than just sound. It's tied to region, culture, even class, and that's what makes it personal. It's about identity, not just clarity. And that's how I reached the conclusion that for somebody learning English, pronunciation was the priority. I've always encouraged my students to embrace the foreign accent. As long as the pronunciation is clear, your accent just makes you unique. If you're in a group of native speakers, everybody else just sounds the same and you sound special. But what if I don't want to sound special? So I might have changed my mind about accent, and here's why. I listened to an interview recently between the two Steves of language learning. Do you know who I mean? Steve Krashen and Steve Kaufman, the big dogs of comprehensible input. Krashen started off with a dad joke, which I quite enjoyed. Qui parle français ici? Je. And then they went on to talk about accent. And they both agreed that we have much greater capacity for accent learning than we think. And it made me question my opinions. Krashen told a pretty cool anecdote about a student who was learning French. The guy wasn't the best in the class, he wasn't really taking it seriously, and he was probably going to fail the final speaking test. So he decided that if he was going to fail, he would fail spectacularly. He decided he'd make a joke out of the final speaking presentation and put on an exaggerated, ridiculous French accent. C'est bizarre ça. Well, he got the best grade. The teachers couldn't believe it. C'est magnifique. So he thought he sounded ridiculous, but they had no idea he was making fun of them. They just loved his accent. So we need to lose our hang-ups and reservations and really act the part of the native speaker. And that story took me back to my language classes when I was at school. It was terrible. The teachers were terrible, the materials were terrible, the kids were really terrible. We had to study French and Spanish, but unfortunately, French and Spanish were not cool. Nobody wanted to be there, so nobody learned anything. And thinking back, there was this thing about accent. You see, I went to school in Liverpool and we speak with an accent exceedingly rare. Now, like I said, French and Spanish weren't cool, but what was cool was speaking really bad French or Spanish with a heavy Liverpool accent. Bonjour, lad. You what, lad? Como estas, lad? What a waste of time. I wish somebody could have talked some sense into us at the time. The need to conform with the group prevented any of us from learning something really cool for life, how to speak a foreign language. And I had to do it the hard way as an adult. And I saw a similar phenomenon when I was teaching English to French kids. A real reluctance to be seen to be good at English. It was much cooler to speak English with a really accent like this. The good news is when we're learning English as adults, we're a bit more mature. So we don't have this problem quite as bad. But we're still afraid of sounding stupid or sounding different. But native speakers of English do sound different. So if you're not prepared to sound different when you're speaking English, your accent will never change. So is your accent permanent? Yes, unless you're willing to experiment. Unless you treat speaking like performing. Unless you're willing to sound wrong just for a little while. You know what native speakers sound like? Give yourself permission to experiment. I invite you to step into our world of English, because when you embrace the music, the literature, the culture, and yes, the accent, that's when the magic starts to happen. You don't need to sound native, but if you give it a try, you might surprise yourself. And if you want to build your vocabulary to native levels, watch this video next and download the free PDF, link in the description.